My name is Swati Shah. I'm Senior Vice President of Emerging Technology at US Bank. And what we are working towards is API microservices, DevOps for our cloud acceleration and modernization. What we would be talking about today is about DevOps, of course. And we wanted to keep this more conversational. It's not about us just coming here and talking about it, right? I wanted to introduce two of my leaders here. Anton Fernando, you are not able to see him, he's in the back. And he's one of the technology executives who is driving API and DevOps and how we accomplish speed to market. And Amy Dempsey is another leader who is actually working on a lot of magic to make it happen with the teams from continuous delivery as a service, along with few other members from the team here, Myrtle, Zaran, Vishnu, and Kalpesh. So what do we want to accomplish with DevOps? I don't think so. I'm going to say anything different than what you have read or what you know, right? It's about agility. It's about speed to market. It's about how do we build the customer experience with zero downtime, right? And it's, of course, about operational costs. It's about compliance. It's about risk if you are working through the regulated industry. What is one of the win that we have seen in US Bank, from my perspective, is how we have built the culture of collaboration, communication, and contribution to accelerate this journey. And it has been a phenomenal start, and we have a lot of work to be done. So that's one thing we are going to touch base today. Again, it's about speed. Our recommendation based on our experiences, focus on the problem statement that your organization has. You want to achieve speed, you have challenges with the quality, or you are tackling costs. And all of it would be tackled together, but focus on the problem statement that you have. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Anton, and who Anton and Amy would be talking a lot about in terms of taking a little bit deep dive on how we are doing it, what we are doing it.
We're going to start off with a question here, right? How many of you had a bank account in the year 2000? 2000, yeah? How many of you remember standing in line to cash a check? Okay. How many of you guys go to banks these days? Right? So technology has really transformed how banks work, and it's been eye-opening for me. I have some colleagues seated at the very end of it. I come from a startup kind of background, and just just looking at banks and the transformation that the technical advances that have been made and the value that the customer derived has been very close to my heart. The other thing I wanted to ask was, how many of you have bank accounts right now? Within the last 24 hours, how many of you interacted with a bank? So I do see quite a lot of hands. Yeah, every time we pay for an Uber, we interact with the bank, right? It all happens in the background, and we are so glad that we are able to add value without being in front of the customer all the time. So from a technology perspective, think about it like this, right? Like, banks are big. Like, we are the 5th largest bank in the United States. That really means that there have been a lot of acquisitions. We have merged, we have bought companies. They bring different things with them, right? Like a different set of technologies, different people, different set of skills. And they also bring security. Now, banking is a highly regulated industry. There's something that I'm learning. I'm still learning a lot about banking. A traditional company does not work in the sense. And when companies merge, not only do they bring their own culture, their own people, their own skills and technologies, they also bring their own processes. People don't really understand, when a company merges, that's like the most difficult thing. It's really difficult to bring two companies together. It's a long process. So all of this stuff, right, like it happens at US Bank. We have a lot of companies. You guys know of US Bank, but what you don't know is we have subsidiaries called Elavon, all payment transactions, right? They are an API-only company, and all of the money movement that happens, they're a big player in that space. So when we bring these companies together and the technologies together and we try to merge these things, we get into sort of this problem, right? Like we have technical debt that we need to deal with. We have different people skills, different cultural skills that we have to deal with. And it is a really ticking time bomb because at the end of the day, the developer experience is kind of lost in that whole conversation. So what do developers do? They're stressed out. They're constantly running to coffee machines, right? Like trying to get things done. And they're having less fun doing it. So this is a problem, and we really believe that DevOps can actually help the developer experience at US Bank. So let's talk about startups. I used to work for one, and it's a great startup too, and I have a bunch of colleagues there. What do we learn from them, right? Like what we learn from them is, for us, a product release process simply looks like what Brian showed just before this. So we ideate, we come up with product ideas, we plan, we develop and test, and then we release, right? So it's very easy for developers to develop software, I think. Software runs great locally on our laptops, but running it in production is a totally different beast. It's not easy. What about the developer? So in the DevOps space, the way we think about this is developer experience is very, very important. It is not enough to empower developers to go and do great things. We need to give them the right tools to go do those things, right? A good example would be chopping wood. Like I cannot just say, oh yeah, I empower you to chop wood without giving them an axe. So how do we do this with US Bank, right? Like one of the so I've been in US Bank for about a year now. A lot of folks have been here for a short time, and within the short time, we partnered with several companies in the DevOps space. For us, what we want to do is give a unified developer experience, and there's a reason why. Swati just now was talking about collaboration, right? You can all collaborate only if you understand the tools, right? Like how does a person in team A contribute something in team B when both of them have two different experiences, especially when it comes to DevOps? I use TFS, you guys use Jenkins, I have no idea what it is, sorry I can't help, right? We are trying to break the silos within US Bank, and the way we are trying to do this is consolidate the DevOps experience. Everybody gets the same experience, irrespective of language. You're a .NET developer, yeah, go ahead, go build your applications, but your DevOps is going to be a unified experience. You want to learn about Java? There's this Java team, and they're looking for some help. You want to contribute? Go ahead. Same experience, right? Same pipeline, same tools. Everybody gets the same experience. So they are able to collaborate with each other. They can look at each other's code. They can do peer reviews. They can contribute. They can work together as a team to drive customer value. We want to relentlessly focus on the customer, and that can only happen if we unleash the human potential that is in our developers, right? Because developers are very, very smart. Not only do they know how to develop a product, they actually understand what the product manager is saying and why it is a good or a bad idea. How many of you guys have had that conversation with your product managers? Hey, this is a great idea. This idea, if I don't get it, how the customer is going to get it, right? So you guys are in this unique space, and there's so much you can contribute. And we have the same thing too. If you typically look at banks, a lot of our developers have worked in banking for a long time. They have this thing called domain expertise, right? Like they understand that particular field very well. For example, the guys who work on mortgage applications understand mortgages in and out. They know how a loan is originated. They know how a loan is approved. They know who needs to approve it. They understand the whole workflow. And when they are building products, they're actually bringing that knowledge along with the additional skills that they're bringing to the table. Let's say there's this Java engineer, like he's a superstar, not just in coding, but they also know about the business. They can have a meaningful conversation with a product manager to relentlessly drive value. How do we feel is a really important question, because we are also worried about customer retention, like developer retention, like attrition rates, right? So it's easy to bring somebody in, And they work with us for 5 years. We build a lot of institutional knowledge into them. They bring a lot of skills. But if they're not happy, they're going to go somewhere else. If they're not happy about the team, they're not happy about the other teams that they work with. So that is one thing that we're trying to change with DevOps. DevOps is really helping us in that area. They get a really unified experience. They're happy with what they have. In fact, back at Uptake, for example, we have this great pipelines, right? Like we build this whole integration environment, we tear it down, we do all this good stuff. But when we go to large companies, they're all at different levels of maturity. So all teams are not equal in that area. So one of the things that Swati's organization is trying to drive is how do we make these teams that are at a higher level of maturity, how do they talk to the other teams? How do they learn from each other? And collaboration is a great way to do it. So yesterday, for example, we had this, I work primarily in the API space, so we build all these tools, not just on the DevOps space. So we had this great collaboration with 2 different teams. One who wants to develop APIs, but they don't know much about containerization, orchestration, or even in the pipeline too much. Another who knows everything else, like the stuff that I just talked about, that we know about the pipelines, we know how to develop APIs, we have the tools to do it. And these 2 teams came together and developed a fully functional APIs in 6 hours. Now that is value, right? Like we have created value because there was a need, there's market pressure, and we were able to deliver value to our customers. Guess what? The pipeline, they didn't need to know much about it because the pipelines were getting injected. Cloudbees simply picked that job and ran it for them. We have the code repo automatically created for them in Git. So all of these things automatically happen. And for us, so these 2 teams were kind of separated. We have a team in Minneapolis, and it was so much, for us, the gratification was at the end of the day, at around 3 p.m., 4 p.m., and we hear the teams clap because, the request is sending a response back, and it is right. Like our test cases are passing, right? So that's value. Okay. So Swati briefly touched upon this. Collaboration, communication, contribution. Collaboration is really, really big for us because traditionally in large organizations, not just US Bank, I've noticed this because I've also worked at IBM for a while. What happens is, like I said, like mortgage teams, right? Like they look just within that space and they don't really see outside of it. Now, there might be APIs that they're building that actually creates values for other parts of the organization. But they don't realize that, right? And vice versa. So we all work in these little silos, even from a domain perspective. So knowledge, everything is retained inside of that few teams. So one of the things that we are trying to do here is, at US Bank, we are introducing tools, and we think of all of them as DevOps, right? Communication tools. We use Microsoft Teams right now. We used to use Slack at Uptake. So all of those kind of communication tools keep your developer community engaged, share ideas, things like that. Communication itself, right? Like there are different ways we communicate. We do emails, we do the stand-ups, things like that. But apart from that, some of the things that we do is tech talks. You build this great app. Why keep it a secret, right? Go and engage the rest of the community. Send out a whole invite. Go talk about this thing that that you build, and let others who care about these things gravitate towards you guys. Contribution. So we use this model called inner sourcing within US Bank. It was a recently introduced model, and people are already gravitating to this. They sit in tech talks. They look at people. What are they doing? And then we get pings on Slack. Hey, you guys showed us this awesome demo yesterday. Let's say it's data virtualization using PrestoDB. This was amazing. Can you guys do a more focused demo for us? How can we be part of it? We have similar use cases. Now we are fostering those kinds of communication by actually sharing our knowledge and requesting people participate. Continuous delivery at scale. This is really close to our heart. Like Swati said, we like where we are. We still have a long ways to go. I'm going to hand it off to Amy, who's going to talk about this.
We are here to tell you about our experience on one-click deployment in US Bank. So when we were planning this, we were thinking of 3 important things. First, we want to build a best-in-class, one click of a button, pipeline deployment from commit to production. And second, we want to create a pipeline as a code. And the third thing is we want to promote inner sourcing within the bank. So what we have built is what we call the Enterprise Pipeline Library. So this library consists of different modules that are written in Groovy scripts and that can easily be plug and play in the pipeline. So as you can see, this library, it has different components from the CI/CD. Like we can check out repo. We have modules that will do Maven build. We have different scans like Sonar, Twizzler, Fortify. We have module for Docker builds. We have module to deploy to different environments. And we have different modules to execute different tests like ATDD and performance testing. So the idea is for development teams to be able to customize their pipeline based on their application needs. So for example, I have a Java application and I want it to get deployed. So what can I put in my Jenkins file in order to do that? So I want to check out my code. So I'll grab the module and put it in my Jenkins file. I want to do Maven build too. And I want to do some scans, Sonar, Fortify, and I want to do that in AWS. I want my application to be deployed in AWS. As you can see, it's very easy to plug and play those modules into the Jenkins file and run your pipeline. With this model, we are encouraging developers to reuse and to contribute back to the library. Imagine if, for example, I have a team who wants to do an open source scanning to their application. And right now, it's not available in the library. What they can do is they can create the module, and then they can contribute it back so that other developers can reuse it. And it will also build a community who is open for collaboration. So here is an example of an end-to-end pipeline that we have at US Bank. So it's, as you can see, it's from checkout code until deployment to production. And this slide has all the tools that we are using currently in US Bank. We have JFrog Artifactory for our artifact management, Docker, Kubernetes, Elk for our monitoring, ServiceNow for our release management, Twizzler, SonarQube, GitLab, Fortify, and of course, CloudBees. When we were doing this, we encountered a lot of problems. We made some mistakes. We failed, but we failed fast. And we got back from that, and we learned from our mistakes. So we want to share with you some of our learnings. First is don't focus on the perfect tool chain. So it doesn't matter whether you want Maven, Gradle. It doesn't matter that you don't have the perfect tool. What matters is that tool fits your need and it helps you solve the problem. Don't boil the ocean. I know that we have a lot of different capabilities inside DevOps. We have test, we have release, we have development, we have operations, and we have security capabilities. So what you can do is try to figure out what is important to you and start from there. And the third one is don't go for big bang. Try to build an MVP, minimum viable product. Then do a POC to test it out and check if it works. And if it works, pilot it with a team who will give you feedback. With this method, you'll be able to get feedbacks from other people. You'll be able to fail fast, and you'll be able to fix issue at a very early stage. So before I end our presentation, I just want to leave some thoughts to all of you. When you're thinking about building your pipeline or building your DevOps capabilities, try to think about creating capabilities that will help your business to move your features to production when it's ready for market. And also, planning is good, but doing is so much better. So I'm gonna borrow Nike's slogan, just do it. Thank you.